And I declare that this adjourned meeting from last week is now open. I'd like to welcome everyone in the public gallery, those watching online at home, all councillors and staff and any members of the media. I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging as we work to grow our community together. I'd also like to welcome you in the Noongar language by saying Kaya Wanju Mali Budja. Hello, welcome to Swan Country. Attendance and apologies. I believe all councillors are in attendance, which takes us to item 3. And we'll finish this meeting where we left off at the last one. We'll be heading into part C of the agenda, councillors, and motions of which previous notice has been given. And item C 1.1, Councillor Kiley, school crossing for Caversham Valley Primary School. Councillors, is on page 765 of your agenda. Councillor Kiley.
Mayor, I'm withdrawing that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. The next item, councillors, is item C 1.2, Councillor Parry, review of election caretaker provisions on page 766. Thank you, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I resolve that the council resolved to 1. Request the CEO undertakes a review of the policy POL-C-169, election caretaker provisions, presents the findings of the review and revised policy back to council for consideration in the first quarter of 2022. 2. Include in the review consideration the provisions around the use of notice of motions by councillors that are also candidates in an election. Reason for the motion: one of the objectives of the council election caretaker provision policy is to prevent the use of public resources in ways seen to be advantageous to councillors seeking re-election. This policy does not unequivocally exclude councillors who are candidates in an election from moving notices of a motion during the election caretaker period. Councillors should seek advice and form a view of the appropriateness of this and ensure that it is clearly delineated in the council policy.
Thank you. I have a second. Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Question. Councillor Johnson.
How would this have the effect of actually stopping a councillor from putting a motion on notice? Because I think we've already got legal advice to the effect it's with the current law, there's no stopping it.
Are you asking the question of Councillor Parry or of staff?
Of staff, I think.
Thank you, Ms Albrecht. And if you're not sure, you can take it on notice.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The Code of Conduct does require councillors to follow the city's policies and procedures, and not following a policy could be in breach of the Code of Conduct. So I think that clarifying the intent of the policy will assist councillors in ensuring that there's no breach of policy.
You've got a further question, Councillor Johnson?
Yes, if councillors are required to always follow policy, what happens if we vote against it? Do we get a Code of Conduct complaint automatically?
Ms Albrecht?
The council can vote to amend a council policy at any time.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick one. With the announcements of the changes to the legislation where all local governments will have to have a caretaker policy, that will be a set caretaker's policy for all local governments. Is this now redundant?
Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is that the Minister's announcement is to seek consultation from the sector in relation to the draft regulations. That consultation will conclude in February, March next year, so it would not be legislation until after that process.
And I take in mind that we're not due for an election until 2023, but we don't know what could happen in the meantime. Councillor Kiley, do you have a further question? Okay, so I've got a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried, which takes us on to the next item.
Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, I just wondered whether you would indulge having urgent business dealt with for the sake of one attendee that might want to get underway
What's the urgent business?
The
Councillor
rescission
Cole?
motion, proposed rescission motion by Councillor Johnson.
No, I don't consider that to be an urgent point
Thank
of
you.
business. So we'll continue. Item C 1.3, Councillor Johnson, enforcement of ACROD parking on private land, page 767. Thank you, councillors.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to request the CEO to investigate and advise Council on any options available to enable the City to enforce ACROD parking bays on private property if the landowners so desire, but not necessarily all other parking compliance on the private property. The reason for my motion is that there have been reports of people using ACROD parking in private car parks. Parking compliance in private car parks can be done by the City if the private car park owner enters into an enforcement agreement with the City. However, this motion proposes to consider options of enabling the enforcement of ACROD parking compliance only if private car park owners approve.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Howlett. Is there anyone against? Question, Councillor Henderson.
Would the process of going through this include the costs that might be applicable to council to administer it?
Mr Van der Linden? Or Mr Bishop, sorry.
Can you? Yep. Sorry, could you just repeat the question again, please?
Yes, I'm just considering there may be some considerable costs for council to implement and make the compliance work. Would we know what, as part of this process, would we be able to know what the costs would be?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the costs wouldn't be very high. We have currently a parking agreement process for private car parks. This proposal is to target an option where private car park owners can enter into an agreement just to enforce ACROD bays. And basically, because staff costs are already covered, any infringement or prosecution we take under the current parking arrangement, the City would keep the recovery of any of that. So I can't give an exact figure, but we don't consider it to be significant.
Any other questions? Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, just wondering if the mover and seconder would be interested in just adding a little bit more. The first deputation on this item talked about a campaign, Make Someone's Day with this bay, and whether that could be incorporated into the motion as well. Just a question.
Well, you're moving an amendment, or you just want it investigated at the same time?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I was just saying, since there was no debate, whether the mover and seconder were happy just to include that in their motion.
Okay with it, but I need to know exactly what I'm including.
Well, that's why I asked it in the form of a motion. If not, I can just ask staff to include that into their investigation. Okay, I've got a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. Takes us to the next item, C 1.4, Councillor Johnson. Request review of the Lloyd Street Bridge design. It's on page 768. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to write to Main Roads WA requesting a review of the design of the Lloyd Street Bridge to reduce the environmental impact. 2, include the statement made by the Helena River Alliance that was given during deputations. I think actually it was at the last meeting, and report back to Council through the agenda. The reason for the motion is the community are wanting to preserve the environment of the Helena River.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? I'm against, so you'll have 5 minutes to open your debate. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, please support this motion, which is in line with calls from local community groups to review the design for the Lloyd Street Bridge. The Helena River Alliance, a coalition of local community groups, is calling for a better bridge design to lessen the environmental impact. The Helena River floodplain is home to sacred registered Wodjuk-Nyungar sites, including a rock shelter. More than 100 mature flooded gums and 2 billabongs are under threat in the location that would be cleared. The billabongs are home to long-necked turtles. The current design will bury the turtles on their home. The trees support Carnaby cockatoos and the understory provides habitat for quaendas and echidnas. With a better design, it would be possible to save numerous trees and the billabong habitats. It's my understanding from the deputations we've heard that the consultation with the traditional owners could be repeated. We are told the project has Section 18 approval. Councillors, the same Section 18 approval enabled the destruction of the Ducan Gorge. Why are we putting our reputation at risk? In recent years, we have learned a lot about climate change and the importance of preserving biodiversity, mature trees and our cultural heritage. I'm aware the city has advocated for this bridge for many years, but we want the best design possible to minimise the impact on the environment. Let us urge Main Roads to take another look at this and get the best possible outcome, not just for cars and trucks, but for the community and the wildlife and the trees. I know a rally to save the Helena River wetlands is planned to be held on Saturday, December the 4th at 10:30 a.m. by the roundabout at Lloyd Street and Stirling Crescent, Hazelmere Council, so I'll see you all there. In my view, we are looking at another potential row 8, so let's get behind the community and advocate for the best possible bridge design, not the cheapest and easiest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Kyle is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I also encourage you to support this motion. We are not asking for much at all. We are asking for a review of the design. It's as simple as that. We're not asking for a new bridge. We're not asking for a new bridge design. We're looking for a review of the current bridge design to get better environmental outcomes or reduce the environmental impact, as Councillor Johnson's motion says. So I just want to probably foreshadow some of the argument being presented, which will probably come up against this motion. The issue of advocacy priorities, that this item has been on our advocacy list for many, many years, and councillors and former mayors have gone and former CEOs have gone to Canberra seeking money, federal grant money for this bridge, and we potentially are putting at risk. I can assure you that asking for a change of design with better environmental outcomes is not putting at risk the bridge itself. It is, and it wouldn't put at risk the funding, which would be another argument. It would not be putting at risk the funding for this bridge. It would highlight, it's simply asking for a better design. So that's not an issue that we should be considering at the moment. We are not looking for a change of the design at the moment. We're asking for requesting a review of the design of the Lloyd Street Bridge to reduce the environmental impact. We are not stopping the funding. We are not suddenly taking off our, diminishing the hard work done by previous CEOs and mayors going to Canberra seeking the funding for this. It's just a review of the design at the moment. They'll say, some may say that the business community has been expecting it for many years. We're not putting that at risk either. We're not looking at stopping this bridge. We want this bridge to go through. It has been hard fought for many years, and I believe the business community do want this. But asking for a review of the design at this stage is prudent. It's in the community's interests. It's in the environment's interests. It's in the Helena River catchment area. The flora and fauna there, it's in the interest of that area as well. So it's simply asking for a review. I don't know to what extent they're going to go and review that design, but it might be a very short meeting. It might extend into a longer meeting. But there is community sentiment around this issue, and I believe it's growing, and I think we have one opportunity to get this right. So simply asking for a review of the design at this stage would not hurt in the slightest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coley. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Conkerton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, I draw your attention to page 768, second paragraph, under the officer's comment. And it states that the Greater Connect Alliance GCA have developed the current Lloyd Street Bridge design based on an extensive consultation with the traditional landowners. The indicated preference was for the previous peer-supported bridge design to be redesigned to be a single-span bridge, but with abutments as far back as the main river channel as possible. As a result of this feedback, the design was adjusted to a continuous 54-metre single-span steel bridge with embankments to avoid the requirement of piers. GCA have obtained native vegetation clearing permit as well as the Section 18. And both of those things appear to be coming up in conversation in relation to Section 18 and vegetation clearing. And it also says on the page 769 that Main Roads has previously indicated to the city staff that it was unable to support a request to re-examine the length and the span of the bridge. And whilst it doesn't go into a redesign of the bridge, it does indicate from our staff that a redesign of the bridge will add tens of $millions of dollars to the project and result in significant delays. So I think we've got a situation where we've received funding for the bridge and we should look at progressing the bridge.
Thank you. Councillor Prodovnik.
I just want to say this very, very quickly. This is such a small request. We are simply writing to Main Roads and simply asking for a review. We're not doing anything too drastic here. It's just part of a conversation, part of a discussion, putting something on the table and having that discussion. This is not an extreme step, and I think it should be supported. So please just, allow us to have that discussion, ask some questions and get something on the table that might come back. Well, allow something to come back. We're only writing a letter. That's all we're doing.
I'll keep turning my own microphone off. Speaker for the motion. Against the motion. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, to Councillor Kiley. Councillor Kiley, you said you're not asking them to redesign the bridge, just review the current design. Is that correct?
I can only go as per the motion, Mayor. I can't put my interpretation on it. We can only go as what the motion states.
I thought I heard in your debate you said we're not asking for a redesign, just for a review. Is that a review of the current bridge?
Well, the motion, Mayor, the motion states a review of the design of the Lloyd Street Bridge to reduce the environmental impact.
Thank you. There's no other speakers. Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, the report doesn't provide me a lot of information, like most of the notice of motion reports. I've been provided information by a number of third parties that whether the information's right, I can't verify. Is there a chance for the officers to provide a little bit more information? Because again, is it our bridge, or are we just providing money to Main Roads? I think it's $46 million because I found in a few items there, but this wasn't provided in there. Again, what's the impact of writing to the Main Roads? Does it need to be built straight away, or can there be a month delay? Those sort of things I'm not getting from the report, so I'm finding I'm not fully informed before be able to make my decision at the moment.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to speak to the item, and then anything that's left unclarified, I'll ask for further speakers before I go back to Councillor Johnson. Anything that's not clarified, you can ask questions of Mr Coaten then. Councillors, I'm standing on this occasion because that's, I believe this is such an important issue, and I think this is the first time I've stood in 15 or more years to enter a debate. Normally I stay seated. So there's a number of questions that could be raised, but from my point of view, as Councillor Kiley tried to allude to in his debate, I'll give you my stopwatch, Councillor Congdon, but I'm advising you now I might be asking for an extension of time. So Councillor Kiley's right. This project has been on the city's horizon since before we became a city back in 2000. It's been our number one advocacy priority for the last 14 or 15 years. But in 2019, the city secured $40 million for its construction through a federal and state grant. The $6.5 million that we had already saved over that period of time for its construction, we gave to the federal government when they created the Lloyd Street underpass at a cost of over $100 million. So that's the $6 million where you get the figure from. This was as a result of continued lobbying and an Australian award-winning advertising campaign by the City of Swan. I won't go into those details now because I'll run out of time. Last week I represented the city at the groundbreaking ceremony with the Honourable Minister Rita Saffioti, Minister for Planning and Transport, the Honourable Ken Wyatt, Federal Member for Hasluck, who made the grant funding possible. Also, Minister Wyatt is the Federal Minister for Indigenous Affairs. Also present was the Mayor of Kalamunda at the groundbreaking project for projects worth almost $400 million, which the city has advocated for, and the bridge is just a 10% component of the Freight Connect. So here's our 2018 advocacy booklet. Sitting at number 1 priority is the Lloyd Street Bridge, and it got the biggest attention in our advocacy booklet, a 2-pager saying Freight Connect, which opens out into a 6-pager showing the importance of why this bridge needs to be built, and we've been waiting over 20 years for it. Also included in the current project by the Greater Connect Alliance is the upgrading of the interchanges at Lloyd and Abernethy, or Lloyd Street Abernethy, with the Great Eastern Highway bypass, which will have a tremendous impact on the current traffic that use those intersections. The Minister stated in her press statement that it'll take between 10 and 12 minutes of congestion time off the traffic route, and if you've ever been out in that industrial area, you know there's a lot of B doubles and heavy traffic. But in addition to that, the traffic modelling has stated when the bridge opens, it'll have 16,000 vehicles per day travelling on it. Many of those vehicles will not be doing the rat runs up Clayton Road, Military Road, trying to get into Hazelmere, coming through the back streets of Woodbridge, or, we've all heard it, councillors, Guildford. Up to 20% less traffic going through Guildford, and within 7 years, and I'm taking that if there's a 2024 opening of the bridge, within 7 years, in 2031, the traffic projection is some 27,500 vehicles per day. I've heard it's a little request. We're not going to jeopardise the funding. Well, let me tell you, when I had a conversation with the Federal Minister, he wanted to know, when he was present at the groundbreaking ceremony last week, why hadn't we already started construction on the Allenbrook Leisure Centre? We received $25 million for that. Thank you. $25 million for that some 3 years ago at the last federal election, and we haven't broken ground as yet. His words to me exactly were, use it or lose it. He is facing a federal election in the next 6 months, and if the bridge isn't being built, he'll consider withdrawing the $40 or the $20 million from the federal funding, the grant funding. So those questions were put to Minister Saffioti, and I'm just going to read a little bit. The question by the journalist asked about the Councillor Johnson's motion about the environmental impact. And Mrs Saffioti said, the design was created based on an extensive consultation with traditional landowners and was the preferred over the pier design suggested by the group opposed to the single span design. One of the clear things we had to secure was...
5 minutes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
There's an extension. How long? 2 minutes? 5 minutes? Extension 5 minutes. Sorry, moved by... Sorry, Councillor Bowman. I took it to the hands. Seconded by Councillor Johnson. No one opposed?
Can I oppose that? Yes, I'd like to oppose the extension for 5 minutes. I mean, I prefer to have a briefing session, actually.
Sorry, so you are opposed, Councillor?
Yes.
Okay, is there anybody who wishes to discuss the... No? Okay, so we'll continue. Thank you. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
I think you need to put it to the vote, Councillor.
Sorry, we put it to the vote. Sorry, the 5 minute extension to the vote. So all those in favour?
Okay, so it's Councillor Catalano and Councillor Sarah Hallett and Councillor Knight?
He's against.
You're
3 against.
Okay. We'll declare it carried. Continue.
Thank you. So, Minister Saffioli said one of the clear things we had to secure for the approval of a particular Section 18 Aboriginal heritage was to remove the piers from the water because that was the biggest issue for Aboriginal cultural reasons. So there was extensive consultation, and as per Clause 18 of the Noongar Standard Heritage Agreement, the South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council put forward the Wadjuk Native Title Group to engage on the Indigenous issues as part of the Aboriginal Heritage Survey. That has been done, and they did not want piers put into the riverbed of the Helena River, and there'll be numerous piers to support the span, and they would have to go metres into the riverbed. That's why we've got the current design. So I'm just going to read now quickly from a letter which was forwarded to Mr Constantine from the Helena River Alliance, and he asked exactly the same question to Main Roads about 6 weeks ago. And they write back, "Your concerns have been considered by the Project Steering Committee, and please accept this response on behalf of Main Roads Western Australia. To provide the necessary context, the Lloyd Street Bridge over Helena River is a project local and regional significance that's been planned for more than 20 years. The project will create a new southern entry to Midland, providing improved access to St John of God Hospital, Curtin University campus and the emerging commercial and entertainment precinct. The bridge will reduce traffic on Military Road at the intersection of Clayton Street between Military Road and Lloyd Street, and is also expected to reduce traffic volumes through Guildford by up to 20%. The project is in receipt of environmental approvals, native vegetation clearing permit and Aboriginal heritage approvals granted under Section 18, with the development application scheduled to be submitted to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage in the coming weeks." Now, remember, this is about 6 weeks old, this letter. The Aboriginal heritage approval followed extensive consultation with the project's Wadjuk Native Title Working Claim Group. The group suggested that the impacts of the original design that went into the Helena River could be mitigated by redesigning the bridge structures so they had a clear span rather than pier supports, and by moving the abutments as far back from the main river channel as possible within the constraints posed by engineering. As a result of this feedback, Main Roads redesigned the bridge by adopting a continuous 54-metre single-span steel bridge to remove piers and maximise the span, thus improving setback from the river channel. This design change is incorporated in the condition of the project's Aboriginal heritage approval. You change the design, you've got to go back and start the consultation all over again, which will lead to significant delays, and the project is already on the way. While comments in your correspondence about the choke point in the riverbed are noted, the flood modelling indicates the bridge will have negligible impact on flood levels. The modelling demonstrates the impact of the embankment during a 1 in 100 year flood. Water minimal rise will be between 5 and 10 centimetres, so 4 inches additional water flowing through there. During the construction, the Helena River will be protected via the use of appropriate sedimentation control, such as silt fencing. Baseline water monitoring has already been undertaken, and water will be monitored through the construction to ensure water quality is maintained. In response to your clearing about the trees, I acknowledge that some established trees will be cleared to accommodate the project. However, the project incorporates substantial revegetation. More than 30,000 trees, plants and shrubs will be planted over a 10-acre area. Thank you. Importantly, the Lloyd Street Bridge could also activate what's currently a degraded and inaccessible space. My fear is, councillors, if we stop this project now, we may lose the federal grant funding. And in fact, just today I had a further discussion with Minister Wyatt on our next lot of advocacy priorities, and we mentioned something in order of $100 to $120 million worth of grant funding, which could be at jeopardy if we don't continue as proceeded. Thank you. Thank you. Any question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A question through you to staff. What period will these plantings be taken over until they're completed?
Mr Coaten, can you answer that?
Oh, I don't have that information to hand, no.
Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. I've got a question of Mr Coaten. There's a very large pile of contaminated soil. In fact, it's more than a pile. It's an actual mini hill of contaminated soil. Do you know, do you know if that contaminated soil is going to be used in construction of this bridge?
I can answer that.
With this current design?
Councillor Catalano. The question was asked by the Helena River Alliance, and in response, it says, in response to your comment regarding the use of contaminated material, as stated by Main Roads representative at the workshop you attended, Main Roads has no intention of using contaminated material within the Lloyd Street Bridge project.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Main Roads are going to construct it? Are Main Roads going to construct it, Mr Coaten?
A contractor working with Main Roads will be constructing it, yes.
And they're not going to be using the contaminated fill in that construction?
I think the Mayor just answered that question, but no, they're not.
So maybe what's going to happen to the contaminated fill? The contaminated hill? It's not fill yet, it's a hill at the moment.
That's unknown at the moment. Council may recall there was I believe it was a notice of motion, I can't remember who, for the city to write to the state government regarding that, which has occurred, or we haven't had a response as to that as yet.
Okay, then thanks for that. Just the final question then. Do we know where this soil is going to be coming from? Because as I understand it, the current design is for very, very large infill of the Helena River floodplain. Do we know where that soil is going to be coming from under this current design?
I don't have that information to hand, but I will perhaps take the opportunity to point out as well, Main Roads will be coming along to the city to provide a briefing to Council on the 1st of December as per Councillor Catalano's request, so they may have further information on that.
Great, thank you for that.
Councillor Henderson, do you have a question? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regard to that question regarding those plantings, if there's 30,000 significant plantings to be had, and we don't have a schedule as yet, when will councillors be kept up to date with the proposal for that, and who's responsible for those plantings?
Mr Coaten.
Yeah, I must clarify my answer. I didn't say there wasn't a schedule. I said that I meant to say that I wasn't aware of one. So we can certainly get that schedule and provide it to Council.
And who will be doing the planting?
Well, I dare say the contractors. Councillor Bowman.
So, thank you for the information, Mr Mayor. I've probably got a few questions. I just want to make sure I'm correct in my understanding. So it was going to be a pier bridge
originally,
and so then it was 54 metres clear span. But then my understanding is the issue of concern is the next part where there's a lot of fill going in and the embankment goes very wide. Am I correct in that?
My understanding was that the original design of a pier bridge extended almost from one side of the floodplain to the other, of perhaps a couple of 100 metres. That was not acceptable to the Indigenous group, and they did not want multiple piers dug many metres into the floodplain or the river, and so the design was changed from that original pier design to the current design.
Okay, and the design, how long has that been out and about for? Why is it now the issue being brought up about concerns?
Mr. Coaten?
Because an alliance contract has been awarded for the Great Eastern Highway interchange project, and the Lloyd Street Bridge is a part of that. So essentially the reason it's becoming an issue now is because a contract has been awarded and it's a design and construct contract. So that's work that's actually happening now. And construction is scheduled to commence soon. So that's why it's arisen as an issue.
So sorry, a few more questions for you, Mr. Mayor. So when consultation first began and it got changed, was there not consultation with the broader community and with certain groups as well?
I believe there's a number of workshops and there's been consultation, and I think the Minister said there was extensive consultation, but particularly with the local elders.
Okay, so I understand local elders, but obviously we've got some very passionate people out there at the moment, providing a lot of information. I get the feeling that either they weren't aware of something or they've missed something. So I'm trying to just get in my head, has something changed and people weren't aware of it? And the area of concern that is coming to me is it's not part of the bridge span part, it's the next part where it's the fill, and it goes quite wide out. If it's right where I got shown, there's flags that are quite far out that's going to have all fill there as well.
Mr. Coaten?
Yeah, the footprint of the bridge is, has been raised as a concern by people here. So in relation to the consultation, there's been a range of consultations going on, sort of displays in shopping centres and things like that, and targeted consultation with different groups as well.
Mr. Mayor, my final question, sorry. If we were to write to the main roads requesting a review, how long does that normally take? And what would be the impacts of that time to this project?
We could write to them very quickly. The issue would be how long would they take to write back, and I've had some discussions with staff at Main Roads about this, and the sort of issues that they'd need. Well, if we're requesting a review of the design, what specifically are we requesting? And if it's a review of the design to reduce the environmental impact, then presumably it is a review of the design to have a longer span on the bridge. If council wished to do that, then that of itself necessitates a redesign of the bridge. So that would be a significant period to do that. But certainly writing to Main Roads and getting a response, may not necessarily take long. But if there is any changes to the design from the outcome of that review, then yes, that would be a lengthy process.
But at the same time, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, they could come back, if we write to them asking for a review, and they can come back and say we're not reviewing it. Am I right there?
Well, I can't speak for Main Roads.
The only comment I could add to that, Councillor Bowman, is when Mr. Considine wrote to them, and I didn't get a chance to say it, but I'll say it now. He's talking about the redesign would have significant budgetary implications amounting to tens of millions of dollars, and as a result, Main Roads is unable to support your request to re-examine the length and span of the bridge. And that's only 6 weeks ago. So at that time, they weren't prepared to do it. Councillor Kiley, you are next.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'm interested to know, over the many years of lobbying Canberra and the Federal Minister, Ken White, were you lobbying for an infill bridge, or were you lobbying for a spanned bridge at that time?
We're lobbying for a bridge.
And in regards to the change from a span bridge to a piered bridge to an infill bridge, was the money forthcoming, the federal grant forthcoming, prior to the change or after the change?
I believe the amount always sought by the city. In fact, I can tell you the amount sought in the document in 2018. The cost was $35 million. It's now been made part of a much larger contract and project to include 4 or 5 other intersections with grade-separated flyovers for a total of $386 million. So I can't give you an exact cost on the bridge, but the design change came at the direct request of the Indigenous people consulted. Councillor Howlett, you are next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the information that you provided. It's clear that the original design was not acceptable to the TOs, and that's the traditional owners by putting the poles in the riverbed, and that's been made really clear. However, I haven't really heard that they've approved of this current design. What I've heard is that it's been redesigned. So, do we have the traditional owners signed off on this current design, or is it just assumed that because we're not putting poles down that this would be preferred by them?
It's my understanding that the working group has been in constant liaison with the project managers, and I'll take that from the letter, and that they'll be on site during construction to make sure all their areas are protected that can be, and they'll be working closely to mitigate any impediments as they've brought up during their discussion. I actually did ask if I could get a list of the elders, but under Section 18 of the Noongar Standard Heritage Agreement, the South West Land Council provided the names of their preferred elders to the contractor and Main Roads, but would not release their names to the city.
Thank you. So is there any way that we can be assured that they know in advance of perhaps works commencing, rather, because as you say they're going to be on site overseeing the works, but what if they're not really expecting what's about to happen? How do we get assurance before the works happen that they've cited this new design or the current design and that they sign off on it and approve? Because on my site inspection, it was 8 metres of landfill that will bury the billabongs, and that was quite shocking to me, and I'm not sure if they've actually...
Well, I can only, without knowing their names, I can't take that question any further, Councillor Howlett, but I believe they would have been instrumental on the whole process, and it's now got the clearance, the vegetation clearance, and I think DBCA, along with the department, have signed off on that, and I just can't find the bit I'm trying to read out for you, but I think the Minister said it in her public statement. One of the clear things we had to do is secure approval, in particular Section 18, was to remove the piers from the water because of the issue. It was a big issue for the Aboriginal cultural reasons. We are working, so currently we're working with the Aboriginal groups, and the Environmental Agency, and this design will have to be approved by DBCA, and they will consider all the issues in relation to the impact of the local environment. It has been a challenging situation because the Aboriginal groups would like a flatter abutment and the environmental groups would like a steeper abutment, and we're trying to manage all of that. Councillor Knight, you are next.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know why both of these designs for the bridge seem to be pretty high impact on the environment. Why wasn't an arch bridge ever considered a steel bridge? I mean, we can build one over Sydney Harbour. Surely that would tick all the boxes.
I'm not a bridge designer. The design is the design, Councillor Knight, and I believe it was touched in here about an arch bridge. But I just can't find the answer at this point in time. But it was a consideration, but the current design fitted within the budget project. Otherwise, you'll be adding tens of millions of dollars onto the cost of it. Councillor Podovnik was first.
Just a couple of questions. Can you just clarify, from what I'm hearing from you, from what you've been reading from that letter, Main Roads have already responded to the request to review the design of the bridges. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they're I mean, I haven't seen the whole letter, but from what you're indicating, they're saying that they're not willing to do a review. Is that what the letter says?
I'll read the last paragraph, Councillor Brodovnik, after the 2 full pages. The last paragraph says, as a result, Main Roads is unable to support your request to re-examine the length and span of the bridge. I encourage you to continue to liaise closely with the Greater Collect Alliance team to explore options to mitigate the impacts as much as possible and activate the area along the riverbed to provide a lasting legacy for the local community. And thank you for writing to me.
Okay, so my last question actually is to Councillor Johnson. With that in mind, do you still want to write to Main Roads, and if so, what do you think it would achieve at this point, just so that we're all clear?
Well, I wouldn't have put it as a motion on notice if I didn't want to write to Main Roads and ask them to review the design of the bridge.
We didn't have that information, so now that the Mayor has provided information that wasn't in the report to Council, and they've actually responded saying that they're unable to review the design, you obviously clearly want to put this motion forward. What do you think writing to them may achieve now?
We're a council. We carry more weight.
Are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Question, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. It's no good just saying it could cost tens of millions of dollars. I mean...
Can I ask you to ask a question? It sounds like you're entering debate.
No. My question is that I would like to have exactly how much it would cost for an alternative bridge to be constructed. And I'd like that to be in the briefing session on the 1st of December, because otherwise I don't have that information before me as to how much it would cost for an alternative design bridge.
The only answer I can give you, Councillor Catalano, I'll repeat...
No, it's a question to Mr.
Coaten?
Mr. Coaten about the briefing session, if that could be included.
They come through me, but I'll just give you the answer because I don't think any exact amount could be known at this stage because there's no design, but Main Roads wrote and says, while your preference for a long multi-span or single arch bridge is acknowledged, incorporation of such a structure would necessitate at least doubling the length of the bridge and would pose significant constructability challenges. This would have to be have significant budgetary implications amounting to tens of millions of dollars. A redesign of this magnitude would also necessitate new approvals process, delaying the construction of the project significantly. So tens of millions of dollars.
Is there any way that we can ask them to be more specific than just saying tens of millions of dollars? Because that's just like saying a lot of money. I mean, well, how much more money?
How much does your house cost without having a plan, Councillor Catalano?
Well, that's why I'm asking for some more specific information for the briefing session, please.
Well, I'm trying to state, if there's no design, how can you cost it? Right, I'll ask, are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Johnson, you have 3 minutes for your right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It might take a bit longer than that. Look, first of all, Mr Mayor and councillors, my motion is not against the bridge, and I'm not against the bridge either. Councillors, this motion talks about a letter. So we're writing to Main Roads requesting, not demanding or insisting, we're just requesting a review of the design of the Lloyd Street Bridge. Now, councillors, a while ago in the lead up to this, I thought we better get some information about the design. I couldn't find very much, so I FOI'd it. I FOI'd the drawings for the design. And the FOI officer from Main Roads called me last week and she said, we haven't got any drawings for you. So this bridge design has not advanced very far. There are no drawings, and I think we know that just means right now we've got outline designs in pencil with some calculations and people trying to work out what it's going to cost. So they're probably at the options stage. So this is a perfect time to be writing for review
Point of order,
of the
Mr.
design.
Mayor, I don't think that was raised in debate.
I think Councillor Henderson is right, and I was just about to call a point of order myself. You can only address items that were raised in debate. Councillor Johnson, and no one raised that. So if you can continue with your debate, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually responding to the stage of the design, so that's a bit of information that I've got to respond to that question. So I happen to know that. So we're at a stage where this bridge could be redesigned, or different options for the design could be looked at very minimal cost, because there are no drawings at this stage. That's a fact. All we've got are some, I think there's a brochure giving an indication of what the bridge could look like, but there's no actual design. So we haven't progressed past, I think, the 5% stage. So, councillors, there's been some talk about tiered bridges, different kinds of bridges, and settling on a single span design. And I think Councillor Knight hit it on the head. Well, a single span design doesn't have to be 57.5 metres long. It could be 60 metres long or 120 metres long. It could be however wide the single span bridge needs to be to make sure it doesn't impact on the flora, fauna, and the amazing history that is down there. So, councillors, it could be an arch bridge, it could be a cantilever bridge, it could be a suspension bridge, it could be a cable stay bridge. There's all different kinds of bridges that could be put there, all different kinds of lengths. And I think it's really, this is the point at which those different options can be put on the table. So I think what the Helena River Alliance would probably like to see is a few high-level options instead of just one option being on the table. I don't think there should be any piers either. So I'm in agreement with the traditional owners. So I can't speak for them, obviously, but I think a wider single-span design would probably be something that I'm sure they would give consideration to. Talking about the financial side, the use it or lose it, that's what we call in my business a FUD, and a FUD stands for FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt. People cast doubt on things, say that we'll take the money away, or the budget won't be there, it'll cost more, or it won't be ready. It's just a FUD. This bridge is going to go ahead, there's no doubt about it. What the Helena River Alliance is after, and what my surprisingly controversial motion is about, is just to write a letter requesting review of the design of the bridge. It would be really quite low cost and low impact, because they clearly haven't got a design at this stage. Maybe it will cost more, but what's the
I think I'll have to call you to a point of order, Councillor Johnson. I believe there is a design. That's what they've gone to consult with. And in the letter, and I don't want to refer to it and I don't want to stop your debate, but I think it's wrong for you to say there is no design. I believe there is.
Right, more precisely, there are no drawings that they're prepared to give me under FOI.
Well, I think that's a different
That's
story.
a different statement, but it's much the same thing. I mean,
Well,
the drawings are the design.
completely different.
I don't agree. Speaking as someone with a civil engineering degree, the drawings are the design of the bridge. So if I can just continue, I was going to continue about what is on the site of this bridge. Now, I went there at the weekend, and last weekend actually, with the Helena River Alliance.
Yeah, 30 seconds left. I've already given you 4.5 minutes. Thank you.
Could I have an extension, please, Mr.
Well,
Mayor?
let's get to 5 minutes first.
All right, okay. So what I was astounded by when I got down there was when I was looking at the surveying pegs and what was written on them, I came across the fourth or fifth one I came across. I looked at it sideways. It said rock shelter. And I thought, oh, that must be an Aboriginal rock shelter. So I stood up and looked straight ahead of me, and there was a rock shelter. And not only, I couldn't believe that such a thing was within 1.5 kilometres of the centre of this town hall. An extraordinary piece of history. I didn't even know there was any rock in the Midland area. I thought it was all clay. So what we've got down there is something that I think anybody anywhere in the world would like to come and see. And under the current design, the toe of the...
Right, that's your 5 minutes, Councillor. I'll take an extension for 2 minutes from Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Bowman. But can you just answer a question? Is the rock shelter in the footprint of the bridge?
It's about 2 metres outside of it. So I think that would destroy the... in my opinion, and obviously you'd have to consult with the traditional owners, it would be sufficiently near to impact on the cultural significance and the approach of it. You're not going to see it from the same angle anymore. So I thought it was an amazing thing, and it's something that should be preserved in situ. And if we had a longer span bridge, then the bridge would still be there, but you wouldn't be impacting on it. And I think people would love to see it and know it's still there. I was astounded by it. It's not a very big rock shelter, councillors, but it's there. You know, it's an extraordinary thing to actually have after however, we don't know how old it is, but there it is. So just look at other points. The question came, what are we trying to achieve? A previous letter has been written, the response has been received, but the difference is we are a council. It is in our area, and we have responsibility for amenity, biodiversity, and the protection of heritage of all kinds. So that's why we need to write a letter. I think we need to stand up for this kind of thing. We're a council, we're not just an individual. We have authority. Finally, councillors, I'm concerned there's a risk here.
Thank you.
This could be another Ducan Gorge. So that had Section 18 approval as well, but the traditional owners, I don't think, were very impressed with what happened there. Councillors, it's just a letter requesting a review of the design of the Lloyd Street Bridge to reduce the environmental impact. It's not that controversial, it's just writing a letter. So, Council, I'd urge all councillors to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion is lost. 7 to 8. So 4 were Councillors Prodovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson. All others were against. The motion is lost. Thank you. Takes us to the next part of the agenda, councillors. It's Councillor Kiley, C1.5, Dayton entry signs, and it's on page 770. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, my motion is that Council resolve to consult with the residents of Dayton to see what they would prefer for an entry sign for the suburb of Dayton, not suburbs, we've only got the singular suburb of Dayton. And 2, having undertaken the consultation, report back to Council with the preferred options, including installation locations for Council to consider. The reasons for the motion because the residents of Dayton have requested one.
Or several. Have a seconder. Councillor Catalano, is there anyone against? Question, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is to Councillor Kiley. In the first item 1, it says consult with the residents of Dayton to see what they would prefer. Is the intention that the council would provide a series of entry statements for them to consider, or are you asking them to a blank canvas?
As it would probably, point 2 might answer it, Councillor Congdon, having undertaken the consultation for the council staff to report back to council with the preferred options. I'm not trying to predict what the outcome of that consultation might be. I'll leave it up to staff, and I'm sure they'll do a great job.
Any further questions, Councillor Congdon?
I don't think you actually answered the question, Councillor Kiley. I think you just whacked it over to point 2. So perhaps I could. Would you like me to ask the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay. So in number 1, it says consult with the residents of Dayton to see what they would prefer for an entry sign to the suburb of Dayton. So my question is the city going to provide some drawings of proposed entry statements, or are you going to ask the residents of Dayton to submit drawings of entry statements?
I would suggest point 1 answers that quite clearly, that it's up to the residents of Dayton to see what they would prefer for an entry sign. I would leave it up to the residents of Dayton to see what they come up with, and the options would come back to council for us to vote on following a staff report.
Are you any the wiser, Councillor Congdon?
No, not opposed.
Okay, I'll move to Councillor Bowman has a question.
Mr Mayor, just a few questions, because, again, the report doesn't provide me much information to make a fully informed decision. What other suburbs in the City of Swan have we provided entry statements for?
Mr Coaten, you know some off the top of the head? I know of a couple.
There were. We haven't provided any for many years. Historically, sometimes developers provided signage. We did have suburb signs and entry statements into the city many years ago, going back perhaps 15 to 20 years, they were generally removed as they reached the end of their lives. So we don't generally put them in anymore. There are a few probably historical ones still around.
Mayor, if I could make a point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor Kiley?
The Swan Valley have recently installed new signage. Welcome to the Swan Valley, established 1829. That was a recent inclusion. They're very large signs. Guildford entry signs have been approved. They've gone in today. They're the first of the Guildford entry signs are occurring today, being installed. And so we have done something very recently, and in the last few years, especially for the Swan Valley, I think it's a pretty... anyway, I'll just...
So your point of order was against Mr Coaten, was it?
So
Councillor Bowman, you can continue asking
Mr Mayor,
questions.
the next thing is it's asking for consultation and report back. What's the cost of doing so? How much staff time? What's the opportunity cost of this?
Mr Coaten.
Well, as outlined in there, because staff are unsure of the format, so we can't really provide a cost for that. So if it's something very simple, if you want a sign saying Dayton, that's sort of quite simple. If you want to have workshops with consultants and focus groups and things like that, that's much more extensive. So apologies that there's not a lot of information in the officer comment, but we're responding to the notice of motion.
Okay. So, Mr Mayor, question probably to you or the CEO. How are we supposed to make a decision if we don't know how much work's going to be involved in this report? If it was one day, I may support it. If it's 3 months' worth of work, I'd be questioning it. So, is...
Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's a valid point raised by the councillor. I mean, you've got your meeting procedures, local law review coming up soon, and maybe that clarity can be provided in terms of the information that councillors are putting forward in their notice of motion for officers, so that then my officers can clearly address what the intention is of the councillor's notice of motion, so that we can then hit the mark in terms of staff time, involvement and costs associated with that.
Okay. And Mr Mayor, my final question, I may get the terminology wrong. Public art contributions from developers when we take it, could that be used for this sort of thing?
Mr Coaten?
Yes, that could be, if it was collected in that place, yes.
Councillor Henderson, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Because it's such a wide gambit in point one, would the mover like to bring us through to a budget discussion for next year's budget?
I'd like to make a decision on this tonight. If it fails, then maybe we can do that next year as well.
Later, okay. So another question.
Question, Councillor Henderson.
Could the mover perhaps broaden it a little bit to include the original owners of the land? By that I mean original owner was Mr Wally Day, if people don't know, because...
Are you suggesting an amendment, Councillor
That's
Henderson?
what I'm asking, if he's prepared to broaden that more widely to his family or those people that lived in the area to effectively capture some of the history out of the name.
Respectfully, I'd like to just leave it to the residents of Dayton, but I would imagine that if staff take it upon themselves to bring that back to council as an option, then I'd be happy to consider it when it comes back to council.
Okay, councillors, I've got a motion. It's been seconded. I'm going to ask, is there anyone against? Yes. You wish to debate it, Councillor Congadin?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you have 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Kiley.
Mayor, I'm not going to waste much time on this. It's a very simple request from the community of Dayton. They want to recognise their new and growing community. It's a lot of development occurring in the area. They want a sense of place. They want to have some civic pride in their area. It's as simple as that. I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano as the seconder.
I think that, the amount of consultation, there was some discussion about the amount of consultation that would be involved. I think that we can be reasonable in interpreting that. We don't have to be specific here tonight. I mean, it can be as simple as a letter. And if people in their consultation and getting back to the city after they've received a letter, or it could even be something that's put on a notice board. I mean, you know, in terms of the website or whatever. And if people get back to the city and say, for instance, that they want it to be more in depth and that they want to take into account the history of the area and they want some kind of elaborate signage, then that's something that they can indicate. But I think that let's not overcomplicate it right now. Let's just write a letter to people in Dayton or put it on the website so that we know that it's on there and we can alert people in Dayton as to the information that can be accessed off the website, and that they can make a submission in respect of the signage, which is something that they have also, well, a lot of people have said that they really want, and for all the reasons that Councillor Kiley has spoken about. For instance, you know, civic pride, sense of place, and the fact that the people are new to the area and want to belong there, and that's something that we should really be encouraging. It makes the community more viable, and it makes it much more healthy, and that's what we want for all our communities, and we also want it for Dayton. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I recall Midland requesting an entry statement, and during the consultation process, it was the staff through the various, I think it was Mundaring, and through some artists came up with some impressions and some physical midget models, I would call them, to present to council for council to approve. And one would suggest if you were going to look at consulting with the residents of, sorry, that didn't proceed, by the way, because nobody liked them. This is to consult with the resident of Dayton to see what they would prefer. Writing a letter to a resident of Dayton saying we're looking at putting in entry statements, what would you prefer? And I'd be turning the piece of paper I was looking for what I would prefer. Or we writing to the residents of Dayton and saying, would you consider attending a workshop to be held on blah, blah, blah to look at some designs for an entry statement? So I don't think in this consultation process...
Sorry, point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor Kiley?
We're not looking for an entry statement. The motion refers to an entry sign. We're not looking to do an elaborate entry statement. It's an entry sign.
Can I ask how many signs you're thinking of?
I can have a guess at how many entrance points there are to Dayton, but I would rather leave that up to staff to determine. I would imagine it would be in the vicinity of 8 potential entrances.
Thank you. I'll allow Councillor Congdon to continue, and I don't think there is a point of order. Continue. Thank you, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sign entry statement, it's the same thing to me. We have one in Malaga for reference point, which was a cooperative arrangement between the Malaga Business and Districts Association and the city to advise the community they were entering Malaga. I've never quite understood why you want to tell people you're entering Malaga or entering Dayton or entering Ballajura, because most people who live there know where it is. But however, I just think there is just a problem, I think, Councillor, with the way it's written. I understand the intent, and if it was written in such a way as there was something for the residents to look at, or there was a workshop to invite them to, or the community groups or the school children that are within the vicinity to have a contribution to it, and I go, fine. But the other issue we have is that we establish precedent. So, as in the report by the officers, it says we have another 42 suburbs that could potentially ask the city to put signs in their localities as well. And we have no budget for this. So I probably was raised a little bit earlier about putting them out on a budget for entry signs or a discussion on entry signs a little bit further with the staff on what could be presented. So it's not even in the draft budget. So does it come from muni funds? I don't know. So it's a bit loose for me, Councillor. I'm sorry.
Question, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to staff, what was the cost of the Guildford entry signs per one sign? If that's the sign that we're potentially looking at, Councillor Kiley.
Mr. Coaten, do you have that information available?
I can answer that, Mayor, if you like.
Councillor Kiley, have you got the answer?
The funding for the Guildford signs was paid for through a grant from the Honourable Michelle Roberts. It wasn't funded by the city or the ratepayer.
What was the cost per sign?
I don't know that.
Speaker for the motion. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Bowman. You have 5 minutes, thank you, if you need it.
I won't need it. Mr. Mayor, I can't support this motion. I don't know what the cost implications are. I don't know why. It's only Dayton. We should be trying to build community capacity. I would have thought that a request like this would come from a good, strong residents and ratepayers association with some ideas that then perhaps we could get costed up. And until that happens, I can't support it without knowing all the information and the costs.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Johnson.
I'll be really honest, Mr. Mayor. I've made my mind up yet which way I'm going to vote. I just want to continue on from the origination comment that Councillor Bowman made. I think the best way to originate this kind of request would be through a petition from the community. So then we'd be very clear that they definitely wanted an entry sign. So those are my thoughts on the subject.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Predovnik, you have a question?
So just to seek clarification from Councillor Kiley, you're saying that the residents have already asked for this sign, is that correct?
Some residents, yes.
Councillors, any other questions or any other councillors wish to debate the item? And Councillor Kiley, you have 3 minutes for your right of reply. Thank you.
A good, strong residents and ratepayers organisation. Councillors, how are we supposed to develop good, strong residents and ratepayers organisations if we can't give them a sense of place in the first place? They don't have a sign that says you live in Dayton. We've got one, a big one, a really big one. You're entering the Swan Valley, established 1829. We've got one for Guildford, which will establish a sense of place, a heritage recognised area. But Councillor Bowman, I cannot fathom why you can say that in a developing community, that we have to somehow develop the community first but not recognise that they exist. We need to give them recognition in the first place. We need to give them a sign. It might be a simple little aluminium sign about this big that says Dayton. That's probably all they're asking for at the moment. We're not asking for an entry statement. An entry statement has all sorts of connotations about a big, elaborate piece of signage.
A point of order, Councillor Kiley, but your motion actually says they want to prefer for an entry statement, so you are talking about an entry statement. Or entry.
I'm sorry, Mayor,
entry,
it says an entry sign.
Sorry, entry sign.
So I don't think you have a point of order. I'm sorry.
No, I'll withdraw, but when you said entry sign, I just took it to be entry statement.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for withdrawing that. So it's a simple entry sign, councillors. It's not an entry statement. We need to recognise these communities, and if it does we end up having other communities come forth, whether it be I don't know where else, but if they come forth, I'd be supporting that, because we need to recognise the individual communities and the importance of these communities. It's as simple as a few people in the area wanting an entry sign. That's it. We can find the money through the budget. We've had savings of millions of dollars through in this budget. We've recognised close to $3 million of savings through salaries. We have savings on the existing budget. We can find this sort of money to put in an entry sign. In terms of why we might need an entry sign for Malaga, well, people might want to go to Malaga because they've never been there before. It's an industrial area. They might want to go there for the first time to look at a tile shop or something like that. So helping people actually find their way to Malaga might actually be beneficial. Not everybody who goes to Malaga actually lives in the area. They actually travel from a fair distance because there are businesses and many of them in the Malaga area. So Malaga, I think, should have a sign as well. I think
Yeah,
it would
30
help
seconds left, thank
I
you.
think it would help the businesses. I can't believe that we've got councillors who are not going to support this. We have massive signs for the Swan Valley. I don't see why we can't have a little sign to say Dayton. We need to start building these communities and recognising them and their place in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put it to the vote. Those councillors in favour. I have Councillor Pradovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch. The motion is carried. The rest were against. Did you get all those, Danica? Thank you. That takes us to the next item, which is item C 1.6. Councillor Bowman. It's on page 771. Thank you, councillors.
Mr Mayor, I move that the Council resolves to request the Chief Executive Officer to make confidential in all tender reports only those individual parts of any tender that are confidential and can be kept confidential under Section 523 of the Local Government Act 1995.
And your reason, thank you, Councillor Bowman.
As printed, Mr Mayor, Section 523 of the Local Government Act 1995 should not be used to keep entire reports confidential when parts of the report may be made public. Second reason, there is a lot of information relating to tenders that can be made available to the public. Third point, providing more information to the public would likely lead to greater confidence and understanding of council decision making. Fourth point, transparency and accountability are key components of good governance. And my final point, the Council's Strategic Community Plan 2021 to 2031 includes an objective to provide accountable and transparent leadership.
Thank you. I had a seconder and Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? You're against, Councillor Parry. You wish to debate it? Yes, please. Thank you. You'll have 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to be quick because I provided quite a bit of information on my notice of motion, so hopefully other councillors can make a fully informed decision. Mr Mayor, Section 523 is often misused by a lot of local governments. Examples are, if you have a report that you may seek legal advice, and the Act says may seek legal advice, you can make it confidential. You can have a report, Mr Mayor, that does provide just one paragraph of legal information, and the report can be made confidential. However, good governance, open and transparency would say that that information is provided to councillors under separate confidential cover. Mr Mayor, having looked at local governments, it's always good to compare, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Nearly every local government I looked at provides a lot of information to their members of the public about their tenders. And I picked the city of Joondalup, fairly big, large local government. One of their reports, and this is just a tender for extensions and refurbishments of club rooms. What do they tell us? They tell us exactly which companies tendered. They tell us what it's about. They tell us where they've advertised it, how long they advertised it for. They provide the weighting. So the weighting, the qualitative criteria is provided in there. They provide us information on who was actually compliant and who was non-compliant. They tell us the price. So in the City of Joondalup tender reports available to all members of the public, I can see the price of each of those companies. They show us the budget. So we actually know, as residents and ratepayers, what the budget amount is, and we can compare that to the actual amount that's in the tender. Mr Mayor, there's a lot of information that other local governments provide. But Mr Mayor, this is the amount of information we provide to our members of the public. That much. I'm not saying provide information that's confidential, councillors. We can provide that under separate confidential cover to councillors. But what we should be doing is always trying to provide as much information as we can to members of the public so they can actually see the decisions we make. Mr Mayor, when I was sitting on the other side of that chain there, I didn't know what was going on with the Allenbrook Recreation Centre. Didn't have a clue. And when people don't know, what do? They actually make up their own minds. They make up their own information. We should be providing certain information to our public so they can be fully informed and also see the issues we have as well.
Thank you. Councillor Congdon is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I spoke to staff in relation to this notice of motion, and I've been satisfied with the response that we can separate confidential from non-confidential, so I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Parry, you speak against.
Thank you very much. I'll be very quick.
Thank you.
Government procurement policies are completely different to private enterprise. We do open up a lot of this. We do have a lot of information that we do provide to the people that require to tender. Now, a lot of that is confidential. There have been times in our TRC reports that our staff have done recommendations where they have made commentary about the safety of certain suppliers. There have been other recommendations such as the quality of the work that has been provided by certain companies. I can't go into more detail, but I'm giving you generalities here. There's other things as well that often there should not be public knowledge because of the fact that I often believe that the staff often gives the best advice when there is not a lens or basically sunlight going in there and magnifying the circumstance, because often people will skew, the people that provide tenders often will skew the results to what they need to do. For example, in our TRC, we have a quantitative and pricing mechanism in how we do this. Often, put it this way, majority of the time we do choose the cheapest price in regards to the TRC, but there are often other circumstances that we need to explain and how the methodologies and everything else is determined as well. I think that's quite important because a lot of these things that we do often can be, if it's moved to public, what will happen is the fact that other suppliers will understand what other customers are doing as well, which is quite important, which may give them a competitive advantage. Even though that may be not considered confidential, it does give other suppliers that do provide to other people outside the City of Swan, such as the City of Stirling, City of Joondalup, etc., a competitive advantage next time they do a tender. There's been times in my career as well that we often wonder why, in my private life, my employment, there's been many times around the boardroom where we try and figure out why we can't get into local government from a contracting point of view as well.
What's your point of order?
I'm not sure that the personal experiences were.
No, he withdrew the word personal, said his employment experience.
My apologies, Councillor Richardson. The issue is the fact that there is competitive advantages to other suppliers when you release more information. Even though it may not be considered commercial in confidence, there's actually a disadvantage to other suppliers as well. And I do get the transparency argument that Councillor Bowman is there for. But often these projects are extremely complex. When you deal with, let's say, an Ellenbrook leisure centre, people only see the lump sum contract. The problem is that there are so many steps involved in regards to any procurement process that the single line that you see, like let's say it's $60 million or $70 million, it doesn't break down the level that's required to do as well. So therefore, what happens is the fact that other suppliers will review that, or other contractors review that information and work their way down and reduce their pricing as well in the next tender as well. So I think that it should all be all in commercial and confidence, not because of the sake of the suppliers that keep doing our tenders and for the sake of other local governments as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor Kiley.
I'm wondering if there's any implications, or are we potentially deterring tenderers from submitting applications knowing full well that the information that they submit would be made public? Is that a possibility?
Mr Coaten or Ms Albrecht?
Through you, Mr Mayor, my understanding of Councillor Bowman's motion is that commercial and confidence information could still be kept confidential by the Tenders Review Committee. What Councillor Bowman is suggesting is that there are components of the reports that go to the Tenders Review Committee that could be made public. I don't think that the information that Councillor Bowman is suggesting is released would have an impact on our suppliers, but that's me speculating.
And again,
question?
Mayor, through you, would that include the information that would be made public? Would that include the staff assessment of each individual tenderer?
Mr Coaten or Ms Albrecht? I think we're just looking at Councillor Bowman's reasons and comments.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Bowman's motion talks about information such as the criteria weighting used, the rating of each tenderer against the criteria, but it doesn't say that the evaluation itself or the qualitative assessment would necessarily need to be made public.
Any other questions, Councillor Coley?
Just to, in terms of, is there cost implications in terms of having putting out two reports effectively, one for the public and one for the Tender Review Committee, and is there any legal cost involved in checking to ensure that we don't release information that it shouldn't be made public? I'm just interested in staff time involved in putting out the two reports and checking that.
Ms Albrecht.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there may be a small amount of more staff time. What we would do is we would structure the reports so that the front half of the report could be made public, and then we would move confidential information into confidential attachments. The Tender Review Committee would then need to determine whether or not it needed to go behind closed doors, depending on whether or not it wanted to discuss information contained within those confidential attachments. So I guess that there will be more onus on the Tenders Review Committee to make sure that they're not discussing in the public forum information that's been provided to them in the confidential attachments.
Thank you. I had Councillor Henderson next.
In a similar vein, in respect of legal matters, I think City of Joondalup has its own lawyer on staff. Would the CEO consider it necessary to have a qualified lawyer on staff to be able to deal with these things rather than the additional expense of external lawyers?
You can answer.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we do have a qualified lawyer on staff that can attend meetings, and we are getting some further support in that area to enhance our service provision.
Councillor Parry had a question.
I did. So, in reference to, let's say, a tender that we have that has an alternative offer there, should it be our prerogative to explain what the alternative offer is if we're looking for transparency in regards to that? So there are
I didn't understand the question.
Thank
Can
you.
you actually explain it a bit more clearly
so the question
so I can understand
the
it?
question is, in TRC, on Tender Review Committee, you do get alternative offer in pricing that you have. Therefore, in the interest of transparency, in Councillor Bowman's point, should we disclose to the community as well the alternative and what the alternative is?
Ms Albrecht or Mr Coaten? If you can't answer it now, you can take it on notice.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will take the question on notice, but I will say that I would think that we would state in the public report that we had received an alternate offer, but I don't think that we would specify the details of that offer.
Sorry, can I continue on, Mr Mayor?
You've got a further
question? So, in the interest of transparency, do you believe it's not the correct thing to do to make it sure that the alternative offer that is made to show the differences between the construct-only design compared to the alternatives provided by the supplier?
I think Ms Albrecht just answered your question. Right, have you got a question, Councillor Catalano?
Yes, I have. So I'm not at all involved in what do we call it?
Tender review?
No, not tender review,
Audit?
but purchasing, procurement.
Yes.
So the thing I really don't understand, being a complete layperson to procurement matters, is what is the kind of information that can be released out of the Tender Review Committee that is useful for the community, for ratepayers. I suppose that's for Ms Albrecht or Jim Coaten. What kind of information from those meetings, extra information, will actually be released, or that be capable of being released, that isn't being released now? Yeah, thanks.
Mr Albrecht, and if I can draw your attention to pages 771, 72 and 73 of the agenda, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Bowman's put in quite a lot of additional information that answers, I think, your question. But, Ms Albrecht.
Through you, Mr Mayor, page 772 provides a list of the information that Councillor Bowman is suggesting could be released. Things like what the need for the tender was, how many companies tendered, which companies tendered, who was on the evaluation panel, whether any declarations of interest were declared, things like that that explain the process that's been followed.
I did see another hand up come this side of the... No, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten part of the question, but Councillor Perry is referring to an alternative offer. So what do we mean by that? Can the staff explain?
Sometimes tenderers make a non-conforming offer.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Councillor Perry?
Yes, it is.
That's what he thought he meant. So yeah, I've always called those non-complying offers, and they're considered in a different way.
Right, councillors, are there any other questions, or does any other councillors wish to enter debate for or against the motion?
Oh, sorry, I've got another question.
Yes, Councillor Catalano.
Why, Councillor Parry, do you suggest that confidential or information that actually could jeopardise, a supplier, be what? My question is then, how is releasing that information that Ms Albrecht has just informed us about this in the report? How does that actually compromise another supplier?
Can I answer that, Mr Mayor?
You may.
Thank you. So when you do massive construction projects, roads, major public infrastructure, etc., often what contractors do is that they provide alternative offers to say we will reduce the cost of this because of this. And let's say we found cheaper road bed or cheaper asphalt or cheaper sub-base if you allow us to refill it again, for example, just generic things. What that does is the fact that when you do the next tender, and what happens around a lot is the fact that other contractors look at how other contractors do the job and then they realise, that's how they got it cheaper next time. So the issue is the fact that if you release this information, the next time they do the job, people understand how they did the job at a cheaper price and reviewed it at the tender price at the cheaper price. So that's the reason why you don't want to make it public in regards to it, because of the fact that it protects the suppliers in regards to it, in regards to alternative offers.
Ask another question then.
Further question, Councillor
will
Catalano.
that information be released as part of this, the information that is anticipated to be released, we're talking about in the report, is that the kind of information that's going to be released?
All I can say is Perth is a very small town around the construction industries.
I'll ask again, are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Kiley?
Yeah, Mayor, at the moment I'm not going to support this, but I would encourage more information to come back through an agenda forum briefing session on it, and maybe I'm concerned that we're changing the direction of how we do things quite significantly, and I'm concerned about the advice from Councillor Parry. I was initially going to support it, but I think in this case I would vote against it and ask for a briefing from Council before we look at the full implications of it.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Johnson?
Councillors, this one's quite fascinating. Look, more scrutiny of what's going on at the Tender Review Committee would lead to greater transparency and better price discovery. So if we are able to, through greater transparency, drive down the price, and Councillor Parry explained how the price could be brought down through disclosing the information that was that's enabled one construction company to produce a lower rate, then others would go, I can do that as well. That's in our interest. We actually want innovation. We want lower costs. We want the information on how to get costs down to get out there into the community. Councillors, we're not in the interests of getting the best deal for the suppliers. We're interested in getting the best deal for the ratepayers. So that's why as much information as is reasonable, according to the law, should be made public. And we've just heard what Joondalup are doing. They're actually publishing the price. Councillors, greater scrutiny will lead to lower prices. Lower prices will lead to lower rates. Lower rates will lead to happy ratepayers. And I think what happens after that speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Henderson.
Very briefly, councillors. Look, I actually do like where you're heading with this, Councillor Bowman. What I would like to see done is that we actually take this to a briefing. We get much more information on how to fully operate it. Things like tender price and second tier and third tier tenderers' prices usually are not disclosed because that ends up creating difficulties with future business. But the main price certainly sharpens pencils for future tenders. So I think the idea is good if we can get down to a lot more detail with a report from staff and then a briefing on it. I'd feel much more comfortable that we'd covered all of the bases. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? And Councillor Bowman, you were right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'm not sure what a briefing will actually provide, separate to what's in the report. This report provided a lot of information for councillors to make a fully informed decision. In my notice of motion, councillors, I didn't even suggest that we disclose the price, but I have shown you how some local governments do that. On page 772, there's a number of points that I raise that what can be shown to the public that has no consequences. What are we frightened of, councillors? Why are we trying to hide behind section 523 and not provide to members of the public, to our residents and ratepayers, information?
Point of order, Mayor. Sorry.
What's your point of order? Thank you, Councillor.
I take offence at the hide behind. We're not trying to hide behind anything as a council, and I think it suggests that we're being secretive in some way for alternate purposes.
I'll rule that you have no point of order. I think it's the expression used, and that's why Councillor Bowman has moved this motion, so we can be more transparent and accountable. If you can just mind the phrases you use, thanks, Councillor Bowman, and you may restart your debate.
Certainly, Mr Mayor, and to keep Councillor happy, I'll take away the point about hiding behind. Why are we not wanting to provide information that is not confidential? It was suggested there may be more work, 2 reports. I'm not suggesting 2 reports. It's 1 report. However, as councillors, we get a little bit more information. Competitive advantage. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And Councillor Johnson touched on it, so I'm not going to go there again. Our job is to get the best price. And if other companies can find out a better way of doing it that actually leads to a cheaper tender, I'm all for it. We need to look at what we provide to our members of the public. We need to be seen as being open and accountable and transparent. And Mr Mayor, I can't see why holding it off to further discussion is going to provide any further information.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Brodovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch. The motion is carried, and I believe there's 2 against, being Councillor Kiley and Councillor Knight. Parry. Thank you, councillors. Takes us to the next item, which is C1.7, Councillor Knight, installation of solar panel systems, and it's page 774. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion is that the council resolve to request an officer's report into the cost and savings of installing rooftop solar panel systems on all city buildings. The reason: solar panels will save the city money in the long term, as all the buildings are utilised mainly during the day.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried, which takes us to the next item, C1.8, Councillor Knight, request for an Australia Post street box system in Brabham on page 775. Thank you, Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Council resolved to write to Australia Post requesting a new street posting box to be located in a central location in the suburb of Brabham. Propose to Australia Post Whiteman Edge Shopping Centre, Everglades Avenue, as appropriate location for the posting box. The reason for motion: there is currently no posting box in Brabham, with the nearest posting box being located in the Swan Valley. The amenity has been requested by a number of residents within the Brabham community, and the Brabham Town Centre is located on Everglades Avenue. The Whiteman Edge Shopping Centre is a location easily accessible and convenient to the Brabham community. And I may have to declare an impartiality here, as I did campaigning on this during the election. So, if I'm required to.
I'm advised that's not an impartiality point of interest, Councillor Knight. Your second at Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Question, Councillor Bowman.
Just a question through you, Mr Mayor. Is this normally a local government role, or would residents normally request post boxes? And my second follow-up question is, should we not be looking more city-wide? Is it just this area, or are there other areas that we're aware of in the City of Swan that perhaps need post boxes as well, and should we not be including those?
I'll try and answer on behalf of Councillor Knight in the first instance. Brabham's a relatively new suburb. The shopping centre has just been constructed, and currently there is no external post boxes in the area. And I dare say this has come up as a result of some constituents living in Brabham mentioning it to Councillor Knight. And does that answer both your questions?
The other thing is, can residents not request them a post box themselves?
I dare say they can, but as alluded to earlier during Councillor Johnson's debate, it seems it carries more weight if it comes from the local council. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried, which takes us to C1.9, Councillor Podovnik, the BMX track South Guildford, page 776.
So the motion is at Council 1. Note that the draft 2022-23 capital budget includes funding for new BMX jumps in South Guildford. 2. Ensure community consultation for this project will be undertaken in 2021-22, commencing no later than January 2022. 3. During the construction process, undertake asbestos sampling on the fill material that is used for the new BMX track to ensure it doesn't contain asbestos. The reason for the motion is to ensure that any material used to build the new jumps has been tested to ensure that it does not contain asbestos.
Question, Councillor Henderson. I believe one's talking about the draft budget and the other one's talking about community consultation. So my question is to Mr Coaten, is there sufficient, I suppose we take 21-22 for the consultation, that could be commencing no later than January 2022. So, sorry, I misconstrued the question myself. Are you any other questions, Councillor Henderson? Question, sorry, do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones, is there anyone against? You have a question, Councillor Bowman?
Just a quick question. So it's not already in the budget for 2022-23 because we haven't adopted that. So the consultation, how much is that going to cost, and have we got the money in the budget now because it's going to be done in 2 months' time?
Mr Coaten, can you provide us all with a bit of background on this item, please?
Yeah, the consultation's already being organised. It'll be fairly simple. It'll be letterbox drops to the surrounding properties in consultation with community groups, and there are some people who registered interest with us when the existing jumps were closed, so we've kept records of them. So we'll, 2 options have been designed up, so we'll go to those people. The cost won't be significant, and it's already being organised.
Any other questions, councillors? Anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried by the unanimous number of councillors in, and I think only Councillor McCulloch is vacant from the chamber. Okay, so that completes all the items notice of motion. We're now moving to page 5 of the new agenda sheet, councillors, and it's a notice of motion for the revocation of a decision made at the last council meeting last week. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks,
First of all, I'll ask by show of hand, by indication, do I have councillors supporting the revocation motion? I have Councillor Richardson, Councillor Knight, Councillor Johnson and myself. Councillor McCulloch is not in the chamber. The revocation motion... sorry, you're putting your hand up, Councillor Bowman. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, if you keep your hand up. I have the 5, so the revocation motion is alive. If you can read your alternative motion, thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I give notice of motion to revoke the decision of Council on item 4.4, Responsible Authority Report, Proposed Educational Establishment Primary School, Lot 27, Bennett Springs Drive, Bennett Springs, DA 694-21. I'll take it as read, the actual motion, Mr Mayor. And the reason for the notice of motion to revoke is the Swan Christian Education Association has, subsequent to that resolution, provided further information to Council addressing the Council's concerns with safety in the operation of the proposed car park.
I might have skipped the gun a little bit there, Councillor Johnson. Perhaps I should have got you to read that first before I asked for the thing, but I'm happy to continue. So, councillors, for the revocation motion to go forward, there needs to be an absolute majority of councillors. So, those in support of the motion.
Mr Mayor, I think at this point we go to speak to the motion.
Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused. I've got 2 bits of paper. So, is there a seconder to the motion? I'll second it. Is there anyone against? There is, so you have 5 minutes to start your debate. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, we're in a situation where we have rejected a school on a site that has been intended for a primary school for a great many years because of an issue relating to parking and the safety of the premises. Councillors, the law has changed slightly, and my original intention was slightly different. So the motion that I'm foreshadowing basically is to support the officer's recommendation, but with instead a requirement to produce for the school to produce an operational plan to the satisfaction of the JDAP. So, councillors, getting back to the reason we rejected this officer recommendation, it was purely the safety of student pedestrians in the car park, which is obviously a reasonable concern. So, it's my view that we shouldn't reject the application for this reason alone, as the safety of student pedestrians is a concern to all: the school, parents, students, architects, traffic engineer, planning staff, council and JDAP. We have to recognise there will always be risks associated with traffic and school students, and the response to this risk is a risk management plan. I can give some examples from the olden days when I was a primary school boy, as we were called in those days. So I was intending to regale council with fictional tales of walking to school in the north of England past the arsenic works and the asbestos mill. But when I thought about it, there were real and more serious dangers faced by primary school children and road traffic that were mitigated by risk management plans and methods even in those days. Firstly, pollution in those days was so bad that we had something called smog. It wasn't just fog. Smog was so thick, you put your hand out like that and you couldn't see your hand. It was that thick and that dangerous. And at the time, the government had changed the UK time zone, so it was still dark when we walked to school. So the risk response was mothers made their children homemade high-vis vests so it would be more visible, gave us torches and told us to be more careful when crossing the roads. You learnt to listen as well as look. A second example of the dangers to primary school children was cycling to school. So the risk response there was to train children in how to ride safely on the road, and particularly how to make a right turn. So there was a training course that I took part in, I think in 1967. I forgot to bring the certificate with me. I was going to wave it at you. And I passed the cycling proficiency test, so I was going to wave the certificate at you. I'm sorry it's not here, so I was quite proud of it. Look, in both examples, the risk to primary school children by traffic was mitigated by a risk management plan. So we didn't close down the primary schools or stop approving schools. So my motion is about responding to the risk with a risk management plan, in this case the proposed Kiss and Ride operational plan. The proposed Kiss and Ride operational plan will keep the primary school students safe and enable the primary school students to learn about the risks of traffic and how to stay safe in a low-speed, supervised, low-risk environment. Because one day, the skills the students learn in the car park will be used in high-risk traffic environments. They've got to start somewhere. And councillors, I know from what I learnt in my cycling proficiency test, how to turn right, that proved very useful when I eventually bought a motorbike. The skills of where you put your feet were quite useful. So, councillors, this is where these children will start to learn the skills of being safe around traffic. When their parents are present, when all the drivers are parents and looking out for kids, and when there are teachers there to ensure that it's safe. So, councillors, I'm recommending approval subject to the additional condition of a Kiss and Ride operational plan to be produced to the satisfaction of JDAP. Thank you.
Thank you. As the second, I'll reserve my right to speak later if required. A speaker against the motion. Any other speakers? Well, I just asked, is there any speakers against the motion?
I am, but I'm waiting for you to speak against it.
As you did at the last meeting, Councillor Kiley, I just said I reserve my right to speak as the seconder until later on if required. So,
I will speak against it then, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillors, I wonder what we're achieving by this. I just want to point out some issues with this. I look at the alternative motion, and prior to the commencement of operation of the school, the applicant owner is to prepare to the satisfaction of the City of Swanaka Kiss and Drive operational plan. Well, that's already been done. It was in the original report. And as I pointed out last Wednesday, there are serious configuration problems with the Kiss and Ride in the mix-up with the embayment parking on the roadside. It's already been subject to this consultant's report. They've already said there's no problem with it. And if you're happy with that, if you think that the original report is there's no problem with it and you want children and mothers and crossing over, trying to negotiate across a Kiss and Ride area, or potentially having the situation where a child will run towards the school through a Kiss and Ride area to get to the school because mum wasn't looking or dad wasn't looking while the children were getting out of the car, then go ahead and rescind this motion and put forward the other one. But the alternative motion does not achieve anything more than what's already in the existing proposal. Point 2, vehicles travel speeds through the car park area. Well, that's not an issue that really should come up. There's not going to be any issue with travel speeds. The congestion is probably more the point. So it's not really going to be an issue. Signage and line marking to the car parking area that indicates pedestrian movement. Well, that's not an issue either. That's something that will be ticked off. It's not a real problem. What I did last Wednesday is identify issues with the arrangement of the parking, the access, the egress, the problems on Bennett Springs Drive, the confusion that would occur from children entering or leaving school, the bus embayment, the bus movement, a whole range of issues that should be addressed. And as I said last Wednesday, I've done my piece in raising these issues, and I've no doubt that these issues will go to the JDAP and they will be raised regardless of what happens here tonight. But I would encourage you to stick with the original motion. And if you had an issue with it back then, I think we should continue. If you effectively, by agreeing to Councillor Johnson's rescission and putting forward this new motion, you're effectively watering down the original motion which asks JDAP to assess the child safety issues that were legitimately raised last week. I encourage you not to put this off or suggest that we need to water down our consideration of child safety issues. The child safety issues are not going to go away simply because we think, oh, well, we'll leave it up to the experts, because the experts have had a say. It had two peer reviews of the original submitted plan, and it didn't pick up the issues that I picked up with a bit of research and some time spent going over the plan. So I encourage you to send the same message to JDAP, to look at these child safety issues seriously and not water them down by rescinding the motion and putting something in there which is effectively what we've got in the original submission anyway. Simple as that. I've done my bit. I hope you will contribute your bit by recommending to the JDAP that they take these issues seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Catalano.
Yes, I'm going to speak against it. Last week I mentioned that this is planned, the site is actually planned for a school, but we have a very established suburb there now with residents who've been there a long time, and we've got use of, and what I want to say is it's not just about parking, it is also about congestion in the area, and I said that last week as well. It's about congestion and road use in the area. The reason why I talk about it being an established suburb is that people are used to using the roads, the through roads, in the way that they do, and this is going to cause quite considerable changes to the way they use the roads in that suburb, and ultimately it's going to lead to dare I say, conflict or not an easy mix. So it's not just about the parking, but in fact we still have a problem with the parking and the kiss and ride, and that is that the children and the people using that area are going to have to be supervised. What happens if there's just not enough staff on that day to do that supervision? Anything, all kinds of contingencies might come into play, but if there's just not enough staff, how do the children get to school safely? The thing is that I don't think any of these conditions that were put on this item in any way stop the school from progressing, and that was never in our intention. It was about actually highlighting to JDAP that there's more to this proposal than meets the eye. This is not a greenfield. This is not a school being established in a greenfield site. This is a school that's being established in a settled neighbourhood, and it is the new neighbour on the block, and that because of that, this is a different kind of development. This is a development that needs some extra considerations, some extra issues, ways of looking at it, particularly in terms of the way that the roads are currently used, and also the way that the neighbourhood has established itself in terms of people parking on verges because they can't get into the school car park, then banking up along roundabouts at a very close proximity. I mean, none of that's gone away from last week. All that is a really real issue. We have got, very close roundabouts of very close proximity, and it's not going to take very much for those roundabouts to be banked up with traffic. And it's not going to take very much for people to be very incensed and upset if parents are going to end up dropping their kids off or parking their cars up on verges and taking their kids across the road, across traffic to get into the school because they can't get in the car park. All these are still the same issues. And so it's not just about the car park. I think ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to get an awful lot of complaints if these issues that were raised last week are not considered seriously in the next level of JDAP considerations, and that's why they need to be put into the responsible authority report, or at least provided as part of that goes up to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Howard.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to speak against the motion. I agree with Councillor Kiley's points last week he raised in his motion. I've had 17 years of primary school car pickups, so I'm pretty well versed at primary school navigation. I think if we've got the opportunity to recommend to get it right in the first instance, then that's a fantastic opportunity. It's much harder to try and apply things retrospectively, particularly in a school scenario when parents get used to a routine and a pattern. And it's been mentioned that there'll be a supervised car park with an adult supervision, and I just don't know if that's the right, if that's what we need to guarantee it to be safe. I just don't think a set of eyes is enough out there. I think we need to implement or recommend that a better design or a more consistent design to child safety in the first instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Prior to last week, I was concerned about some of the issues of small children crossing and had a look at the designs, and I had a look again tonight and also spoke to the principal prior to the...
And I'll be speaking for the motion. As I said, I reserve my right of speaking earlier on, as we've recently been made aware of. A couple of things, councillors. If I can first ask you, if you've got your agenda, to go to page 241, and you'll notice the block highlighted in red in the middle of the page. That is the subject site that we're talking about. If you just look a little bit to the north towards the binder going through the middle of the agenda, and then go across to the left to lot 375 Bennett Springs Road, the school is already there on Bennett Springs Road. So all the issues about the residents have to get used to a greenfield site with the school being there. In fact, the school was there before most of the residents of Bennett Springs, when it was called Beachborough before the name change, was subdivided by the Cube developers. So the residents who live in...
Point of order, Mayor.
What's your point of order?
Can you keep your comments relevant to the actual lot that we're the subject application? We're not talking about the previous school. We're talking about the current one.
Sorry, Councillor Kiley, I'm going to have to rule your point of order out of order. Councillor Catalano said in her debate that this was a new school to the area and the residents would not be used to a school going onto the site.
Point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor Catalano?
It's a new development. I don't think I mentioned that it was a new school. I said it wasn't like a new school being put into a greenfield site. I didn't even mention it being a new school. I said it was a new development.
Okay, so...
That was what I said.
Once again, I'm going to rule your point out of order.
Mayor, can I just ask, do you need to step off the Mayor's podium while you speak?
I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor to answer any more points of order while I'm debating. I think that's only fair. But, councillors, it was raised during debate that this is a new school going on to a new site, that it is. because the school that currently is occupied is only 380 metres to the west of the current site, which was there before most of the residents moved into Bennett Springs, as I said earlier, called Beachborough. So it was there before the residents moved in. It's not something new that they have to get used to.
Point of order, Mayor.
What?
They are not translating, they are not picking up the car park and moving it to the new site. It's a different access, different egress, different everything. We are not, just because they're there in existence does not mean this is a completely new application and should be addressed as such.
I'll accept the point of order. Thank you.
Well, yes, it is a new application, and as Councillor Johnson's motion says, it will be recommended for approval subject to the traffic management being to the satisfaction of the city. But the point I'm trying to make, councillors, is that residents of the area are well aware of a school site in the locality, only 80 metres away. You heard the deputations and the questions of last week that staff are in the car park before and after school along with parents. So it's not a new idea. I support the revocation motion put forward by Councillor Johnson, and I think you should all do the same. Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you have 3 minutes for your right of reply. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as you say, it may be a new school site, but it's not entirely a new school. So people are familiar with this in the area. Councillors, there is a traffic report, and although changes to traffic are likely to be occurred, I see no reason why that could not be solved by a temporary change road layout sign that we often see when road layouts change. Councillors, my motion is obviously a different one to Councillor Carley's. What I'm proposing is that we approve the school, but with an additional condition to require a kiss and ride operational plan. Now, my motion was actually redrafted for me by the staff. I'm pretty sure that there is no existing kiss and ride operational plan, otherwise we would have a copy of it. So it doesn't exist, Councillor, and that will be produced before the school is in operation. And I'm pretty sure any school would have a proper car park child safety plan as part of its ISO 9000 school operation plan. Councillor, some of the issues that were raised previously have been responded. That some of Councillor Kiley's points have been responded to by the school principal and the school principal's planning staff. There seemed to be a misconception that the main entrance was opening onto Bennett Springs Drive itself. It's not. Students dropped off at the Kiss and Ride and those walking along Bennett Springs Drive can approach the entrance on the footpath skirting to the south of the car park without having to cross the driveway or car park. And we heard from deputations that 99% of the school children will be arriving in a car. So it won't be a case that every child has to cross in front of every car.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Thank you. The Kiss and Ride is intentionally on the south side of the car park as it allows students to exit vehicles from the passenger side directly onto the footpath with direct access to the school entrance. So for 99.9% of children, it's perfectly safe. They're never going to come into collision or have to cross cars moving. And the queue storage length has been considered and analysed by the traffic engineers in the design of the parking lot. There's one further point about the bus. Children do not arrive at the school by bus. If any excursions take place, they'll be during school hours when the Kiss and Ride will be empty and free. The bus will arrive into the Kiss and Ride location. The children will get on and get off the bus in that location. So, councillors, there's a very little risk here. I believe it's safe, and there is a risk management plan. And I explained to you how there has been risk associated with traffic in primary schools for many years, but this is a very, very low risk situation.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That's the end of your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch. The motion is carried. Those against, if you could just raise your hand, were Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano and Councillor Parry. Did you get all that, Danica? Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to the next part of the agenda.
Mr Mayor, don't you have to move the motion that Councillor Johnson...
Sorry. If you can continue, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Move the new motion. Thank you.
Okay, my motion is that... Let me check I've got the right one here. That Council resolved to note the importance of ensuring that the car park of the proposed school can operate in a manner that reduces the risk of conflict between pedestrians and motorists using this area, to endorse the staff recommendation on the application of the Metro Outer Joint Development Assessment Panel, which is to approve the application with conditions subject to the inclusion of the following additional condition. Prior to the commencement of operation of the school, the applicant owner is to prepare, to the satisfaction of the City of Swan, a Kiss and Drive operational plan that will detail the management and supervision of the operation of the car park and Kiss and Drive area through designation of lines of pedestrian movement through the car parking area, including crossing points of the car park, 2, vehicle travel speeds through the car parking area, and 3, signage and line marking to the car parking area that indicates pedestrian movement areas and vehicle speeds to users. 3, note the reason for modifying the staff recommendation is to respond to the reasonable concerns of Council with the safety in operation of the proposed school's car parking area by assuring it is appropriately managed in operation as recommended by the applicant's own traffic impact assessment by Shawmac dated 30th of August 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McCulloch. Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it, Councillor Kiley? I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McCulloch. The motion is passed. And the other councillors, if you just raise your hand, I'll read your names out. Against were Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano and Councillor Parry. Councillor Congdon would like a 10-minute recess. Do I have a seconder? Move Councillor Podovnik. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, then we'll be recessed for 10 minutes, coming back at 8:53. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we're going to resume the meeting. If I can ask you to take your seats. Thank you. We have a quorum, so we'll recommence. We're still in Part C of the agenda. We're moving to notice of motions for consideration at the following meeting if given during this meeting. Do I have any councillors? We're considering notices of motions if given in this meeting. Councillor Zanino.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My intention is to give notice that I'll be moving that the CEO prepare a report to Council on the status of Bells Lookout, Brigadoon, including history, status and options to finalise the ceding of this significant land to the City of Swan, given its unique potential for community and tourism uses, as well as the feasibility of incorporating this land into the Bells Rapids Master Plan. 2, the CEO write to Pete Brigadoon Proprietary Limited for an update on the progress of the repairs being undertaken on the Brigadoon sales office, which require the site to be restored and made safe to the satisfaction of the City of Swan.
Thank you. If you haven't already, can you pass that to the minute clerk so we can get it recorded? Thank you. Any other notices of motion? Councillor Jones, I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to bring my motion back that I withdrew during caretaker period with regards to the lighting at the Ellenbrook School. The
Thank
staff
you.
have the note.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thanks. I've got a motion that I've already submitted to Mr. Coaten about the Lloyd Street Bridge, but I've got to amend. I'll be amending that in light of information that's been received tonight.
Thank you. Councillor McCulloch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two motions here. My first motion is to request the CEO to prepare a report to Council to consider women's wellness sessions at all City of Swan leisure centres. These sessions may include, but not be limited to, opportunities to provide swimming education, gym sessions, socialisation and relaxation opportunities for women in a private, safe and enjoyable environment. My second motion, Mr. Mayor, is to request City officers prepare a report investigating options in regards to supporting the long-term protection and sustainability of the Carnaby's black cockatoo across the City of Swan. Aspects of the report to include potential watering stations at appropriate sites within the city, potential nesting sites in partnership with private property owners, strategic plantings of food sources for the species across the city, and potential community and stakeholder partnerships. Thank you.
And thank you once again. If you could pass those on to staff so we get them recorded correctly. Any others, councillors? Councillor Howlett.
I have a motion for next meeting that the Council resolve to write to the local Minister and the Minister of Police for increased policing in the Midland area. And the reason for my motion is the increased presence of homelessness and outreach services in Midland.
Thank you. If you can pass that notice of motion on to staff. Any others, councillors? Then it takes us to item 3 in part C, which is confidential items, and I need a mover to go behind closed doors. Move Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor Bowman. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, for anyone who's watching at home, because there's no one in the gallery, I thank you for your patience. And if we could make sure the live streaming is now turned off. Thank you, Danica. It is now. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And Council resolved to instruct the bailiff to proceed to sell one property and to continue with the arrangement plan with another owner. In relation to item C 3.5, divestment of city-owned land, lots 4, 5 and 82 Keene Street and lot 81 Junction Parade. The recommendation was Council resolved to authorise. Council resolved to not accept the offer from the Swan Valley Fresh Market Proprietary Limited, but invite them to continue discussion with Council and the City. And I thought there was 3. And in relation to item C 3.2, sale of land, rates and charges outstanding for more than 3 years, the alternative motion from Council adopted. The Council resolved to instruct the bailiff to proceed to sell 2 properties, not instruct the bailiff to sell 6 properties who have paid in full or entered into a payment plan, and defer consideration on 2 properties. And that was carried unanimously. That concludes all the items on this agenda, councillors. So I now close the meeting at 9:53. I thank everyone for their perseverance, patience and good debating, and to anyone still watching on the live stream, good night. Thank you, councillors, and everyone have